Hello and welcome to Module 3, Unit C, Putting It All Together, talking about the bringing together of local evidence, epidemiological evidence and systematic reviews to inform decision making. When we think of the multiple sources of data that we have to support a decision, we need to have some way of being able to make sense of it, and this involves acknowledging its contribution to the decision. It involves some assessment of quality, and it involves the ability to synthesize or gather together the data. This is nicely expressed in a slide that we've used earlier on in the module, which shows the contributions of systematic reviews in providing the best available research evidence, epidemiological information in helping us to understand the population characteristics, and local evidence that helps us to assess the population's values and preferences, and also the expertise of the local practitioner. And we can map these sources of data against the questions that we're trying to address to implement our evidence-based strategy. So, for example, the size of the problem relates to epidemiological data. Information about the preventability of the problem and intervention effectiveness and benefits and harms can be covered by systematic reviews and randomized controlled trials. The cost of the intervention and a comparison of cost versus benefits and incremental gain is handled by the economic evaluations, and they also partly address issues of feasibility. Qualitative studies could help us with acceptability and appropriateness, and then issues of equitability and sustainability may require local evidence. And then we seek to assemble all of this data to inform our decision. If we're going to move to a culture of evidence-based decision-making, we need to embrace certain methodological principles. These could be taken from a number of technology assessment agencies. This particular one comes from that for the National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence in the UK. And that is an agreement to base recommendations on the best available evidence, to determine cost effectiveness using the quality adjusted life year measure, and I believe that will be covered in a subsequent part of the course, to be open and transparent and to involve stakeholders so that we have untrammeled access to local evidence, that we should be clear about scientific and other values that are brought to the decision-making process, that we allow contestability, that we don't regard there being a single authoritative answer, and that the decision-making process is independent of influence by various sources of bias, whether they be those of policy, those of the commercial domain, or other vested interests. In terms of more information about finding evidence, some of this has already been covered in the previous module in South Africa, but to find systematic reviews, the support tool number 7, finding systematic reviews, the one that we've been focusing on in this module, number 11, finding and using research evidence about local conditions, number 11 there, finding and using research evidence about resource use and costs, number 12, which will support the latter part of this course, and then the situation of dealing with insufficient research evidence is a special issue, number 17. So we'd encourage you to use these as a resource for your planning and decision making. Within health technology assessment, it's recognized that there are a large number of stakeholders representing a wide spectrum of different interest groups, and you need to take all of these into account when making a decision. They have been characterized by John Gabay as a long list of Ps. We have here patients, physicians, professionals, providers, purchasers, payers, public health, policymakers, politicians, press, public and producers of the technologies, such as pharma, and also primary research. And he also includes other cultural influences like what he characterized as priests, namely religious and cultural influences. And so by including all of these different values and interests, not necessarily determining the decision to please everyone, but ensuring that everyone's had a chance to represent their view, that enables it to be context-sensitive decision making. And we can see these characterized on this particular graphic also by John Gabay. And so what we'd like you to do is think about all of these in your local context. Think about the influence that they have over the policy that you're providing the evidence for and the subsequent decision. And it's interesting to use this particular schema where you identify where each of these players lies within these boxes. So you have here high influence and high interest, and low influence and low interest, and depending on where you're locating each stakeholder, you seek to move them towards the right-hand side so that they are interested and support your policy. And so what we'd like you to do is use that particular graphic locally. So construct a 2x2 grid with the people with high interest but low influence, people with high interest and high influence, people with low influence and low interest, and people with high influence and low interest. So we'd like you to think not only about which of these groups lies in which part of the grid, but what sort of evidence you think would help to move them from where they are now to where you want or need them to be. So that concludes the Unit C of our presentation. We'd like you to conduct that that exercise and feedback your assessments within the group process. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the course.